On this event, we're joined by Sven Harmeling. He's the Global Policy Lead on Climate Change at CARE International. Thanks so much for joining us, Sven. I'm interested really in the timing here. We've seen all around the world lots of young people protesting, Fridays for the Future protests also, and in the recent EU elections, the Green Party did very well. It feels like there's a new sort of energy surrounding all things climate and environmental. And clearly, you've got a lot of big names there today. But can it translate into political will?
Well, I think it's definitely a very positive development that we have this additional, not only political momentum, but really the movements by students, by many adults as well. And I think people realize more and more the time is running out. There's increasing impatience of the lack of action by governments in particular to confront the very severe climate crisis. Of course, it's important that such a summit delivers more than just some speeches and words, and that the institution, that the business and whoever is there on the ground really, makes commitments and of course really gets their act together. But I think it adds to the momentum we've seen through the European elections. It has become a kind of climate election. We weren't sure whether this would be the case some weeks ago, but I think now all of this has to be translated into the real regulations that we need to get climate change confronted.
Absolutely. And what concerns me is that the accountability. Even the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, at your event said that he regretted that many of the countries in the Paris Agreement promised to do a number of things, but are not even catching up with their own promises. Why is there no accountability, and can that be changed?
I think one of the challenges that the national climate plans that are on the table are not matching up to what we need in terms of really, shifting away from fossil fuels, getting emissions down, and also building resilience to climate change impacts. I think some governments, of course, are doing better, and they understand how important this task is, and it is a challenge for the entire mankind. It's not just an environmental issue. I think one positive development is that that we see more and more people's accountability. I mean, that people are really demanding action by the governments, students, as we already talked about. And I think more and more governments feel the heat that it can't go on like this. Otherwise, we're running into really deep trouble.
And I'm just thinking about the messaging now. You've got a lot of big names attending there, Greta and, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger. How important is this in really pushing and getting that message across now?
Yeah, I think it's another important opportunity, and it also helps building up pressure on governments, on businesses, etc., in advance of a very important and maybe even more important political event, which will be held in New York later this year in September. The Secretary General called on all governments to come to a special climate summit and really come with new and improved plans of action, and not just holding speeches. And I think it's important to bring different communities together, and if people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm sure Greta Thunberg will give a strong speech. I think we need to have this feeling everywhere that the house is on fire, as Greta also often uses the words, and that we really need to start tackling climate change right now.
Absolutely, and that is very beautiful indeed. The house is on fire. Sven Harmeling, Global Policy Lead on Climate Change at CARE International. Thanks so much for speaking to us on TRT World.